3 of VPC playlist. So today we are going to learn that what is a default virtual private cloud. So let's start. Now let's talk about default virtual private cloud. So a default VPC is created in all the accounts of AWS. So let's say that we have created three different accounts of our AWS. So by default only there is VPC created in all the accounts. We don't have to go it. AWS provides us a default VPC in all the accounts which we create. If we do not specify subnet, then EC2 instance will be launched in the default VPC. So let's say that we want to create a EC2 instance. Then if we don't specify a VPC or subnet during the creation of the EC2 instance, then the EC2 instance will be directly created into the default VPC. Default VPC has internet connectivity and all the EC2 instance inside it has public IP addresses. So we have default VPC and it has a direct internet connectivity for all the EC2 instance, and for all the EC2 instance we have a public IP address associated. So DNS names of public and private IPv4 are also provided. So now first of all, let's see what is the default VPC and where it is in our AWS service. So let's go to the VPC console, right? This is the console of VPC. Here we can see our VPCs, and here we have our default VPC here. It is a dash. So it is a default VPC. We can see the VPC ID. We can see the state which is available. We can see the CIDR block here. We don't have the IPv6 CIDR block. We only have the IPv4 CIDR block for our default VPC. Then we have many different settings in our default VPC, right? So this is our CIDR block. So let's see the IPs which are there in our CIDR block. So we have a website called IP address guide. This converts CIDR blocks to IP4 versions. So let's see that. So we have copied our CIDR block of our default VPC and now we'll calculate it here. So let's click on calculate and we will be able to see the result here. Yes, we are able to see the CIDR range, which is this. We are able to see the first IP. So this is the first IP, which is 172.31.0.0, and this is the last IP. So from here to here you can have your IPs in your default VPCs, and total IPs in the whole CIDR range is 65,536, which is a very large amount. So that's fine enough for our default VPC. So the reason why there is always a default VPC for every account is that if you are a new cloud user, then it will be easy for you. If the default VPC is already created, then you don't have to go in very deep and create all the VPCs. But if you are a master, then you should always create your VPC and you can use that, right? So here down in the details we are able to see the VPC ID. Let's Okay, VPC ID, then DNS host names, DNS resolution. Then we are able to see here the root table, network ACL. We are going to talk all about this in a future video. So don't worry, we also have the owner ID and we have many more things here. Then we have the resource map here. Then we have the CIDR blocks. So here we have only one CIDR block, which is this, right? And we don't have any IPv6 CIDR blocks. We have flow logs, but it is not enabled yet, and we also don't have any tags here, right? So here in VPC part we are having subnets also, right, associated with our VPC. So let's click on the subnets, and here are the 6 subnets available for us. So we are able to see the different CIDR blocks for different subnets, right? So here are the different CIDR blocks. Let's see one of them. So we'll copy the first CIDR block and we'll paste it here. Let's calculate. Okay, so the first IP of this CIDR block is 172.31.80.0, and the last is 172.31.95.255. So total the IP of this CIDR block is 4096, right? So we can do that. So these are the subnets which are available in our default VPC. They are attached with our default VPC. So let's see further. We are able to see the availability zone in our subnets, right? And we are able to see the available IPv4 addresses we have calculated here, right? We got 4096, but here there are only 491 IP addresses available. We'll see that why it is like this, why 5 are not included in it. We'll see in further subnet video when we'll go in a very detailed manner in subnet, right? So this is the subnet, and root table is also associated with it. We have also network ACL associated with every subnet which is created and attached to our default VPC. Now let's go to the root table. So here is the root table, and this is the default root table, right? All the subnets of our VPC are attached with this root table, right? Here we have different roots in the root table. We are able to see the two roots here, right? See, it is saying that the IP 0.0.0/0. So, excluding this CIDR block, every request which is coming, it will go to the internet gateway, right? So we know that why internet gateway is used to provide the internet to the resources which are there in our VPCs. So of course, internet gateway is very important. So let's go to the internet gateway here. We are able to see it. So the internet gateway should be attached to the VPC. So here our internet gateway is attached to our default VPC. Yes, internet gateway is very important to provide internet to our resources. So whenever we'll create a EC2 instance in our default VPC, then this internet gateway will provide the internet to our EC2 instance. Here are the details of it, right? We don't have tags yet. So that's it for default VPC. Next is virtual private cloud in AWS. So let's say that multiple VPCs can be created in AWS regions. So we can create more than one VPC in a region. So let's say that we can create maximum 5 VPCs in a particular region. So not more than 5 VPC can be created in a particular region. Minimum size of that is /28 subnet, which is 60 to 16 IP addresses can be included, and the max size is /16, which is 65,535 IP addresses can be included. As VPCs are private, so only private IP addresses can be used. So VPCs are of course private, so we can only use the private IP address ranges. So we already know that private IP ranges has three classes. First is class A. It is ranging from 10 to 10.555. They are used for very big networks. If you want to create a big network, then you can use class A because more number of IPs are included in class A. Then we have class B. In class B, the range is 172.16.0 to 172.31.255.255. It is used in AWS default VPC, right? This is class B, and VPC uses class B. Then last is class C, which is 192.168.0.0 to 192.168.255.255. They are used in home networks. You can say they are also used in local networks. Then last, VPC CIDR, I told that classless inter-domain routing. So VPC CIDR should not overlap with your other networks. So let's say we are creating two VPCs. So we have to give the CIDR classes of both the VPCs different. If we want to do peering, then if the IP address ranges or the block of the CIDR of both the VPCs would be same, then we would have a problem in peering. So both the VPCs should have a different blocks of IPs. So that's it for virtual private cloud. Let's move on to the hands-on of it. So now let's create our first VPC. We have already seen what is default VPC, right? And now we are going to create our own VPC. So click on create VPC. So let's name our VPC as demo VPC, right? Then we have to add our then we have to add our IPv4 CIDR block here. So we are going to choose 10.0.0.0/16 CIDR block. So let's go and check what is actually, how many IPs will get in this. So let's click on calculate here. And yes, the first IP we'll get in this CIDR block is 10.0.0.0. This is the first IP, and this is the last IP, which is 10.0.255.255. So total we will get 65,536 IPs here. So that is more than enough for us at this stage. Right, we are not going to add any IPv6 CIDR block. So choose no IPv6 CIDR block. And next is the tenancy. So we have two types here, dedicated and default. So this is the part of hardware. If you want the dedicated hardware, so you can choose the dedicated one, but we are going to choose shared one because at this stage shared hardware is okay for us, right? We don't want more cost, so it's okay. So choose the default tenancy, and tags will be automatically added. If you want to remove the tags, you can do that, but as this point I'm going to take the tags, right? So all the details are filled. We have added our IPv4 CIDR block, we have added our name. Okay, so now let's go and create our very first VPC. So click on create VPC here, and the VPC will be created, right? So we have already main root table attached and network ACL by defaultly attached with our demo VPC, which we have created recently. Right, we also have the CIDRs here, which we have added, right? We have added this CIDR block, which is 10.0.0.0/16. We can also add more CIDR blocks. So if you want to do that, you have to go to the actions and you have to click on edit VPC. You have to click on edit CIDRs. So you will be able to add, if you want to add a new IPv4 CIDR block, then you can click on this and you can add your VPC CIDR block here. If you want, you can add up to 5 CIDR blocks in one VPC. That's maximum. You can't add more than 5 CIDR blocks. If you want to add IPv6 CIDR blocks, you can also add that. Also, at this point, I'm not adding any more CIDR blocks here, right? So close. So this is how we can create our own VPC. So here we'll be able to see our demo VPC, which we have created. This is the CIDR block for it, right? And we have the main root table and network ACL already attached. So okay, so that's it. This is how we can create the VPC. So that's it for the video. Meeting you in the next video.